Άμστερνταμ. Like many port cities, it was once a small fishing village. But unlike others, at one point it became the world's busiest port. It has now lost that status to several Asian megaports, yet it remains a major economic and cultural hub, attracting people from just about everywhere. But more people means lack of space. And here, this led to innovating housing solutions, like a neighborhood built entirely on water.
This is the island where we are now. You can see that actually this island is just a very small part of the whole area.
With Lake Aymer, the Amstel River, and the hundreds of canals irrigating the city, water here is, well, everywhere.
There's about 3,000 houseboats in Amsterdam, so about 1% of the people in Amsterdam live on a houseboat.
The city does have the reputation of being the world's capital of social tolerance. But according to some, Amsterdammers are more indifferent than they are tolerant.
The level of tolerance has gone down a bit lately because it's economical crisis, because the tension between social classes and ethnic groups, like everywhere in the rest of Europe.
It is said that the Dutch are born on a bicycle. But in the country's capital, between trams, buses and cars, foreigners could get the impression that riding on two wheels is risky business. Nonetheless, almost half of the city's commutes happen on a bike.
We go here to the left.
Yes.
When we arrived to Amsterdam, it's fascinating, Paul.
Yeah.
The number of bikes here. It's a way of life.
It's a way of life, and it's crazy. We have like 800,000 bikes, more or less.
800,000.
Yeah. You have to imagine that everyone has a bike here. Even the ones who has a car has a bike as well. So you have no parking problems.
And it's cheap.
It's cheap and less pollution as well.
So who bikes here?
Kids from 4 years old till the oldest ages. I don't know, people from 80, 90, they can still bike.
How did the bicycle culture come about in Amsterdam?
In the 30s, we had a crisis, so a lot of people had a car, but...
It was cheaper to bike?
Yeah, but in the 60s, where the cars were cheaper, the bicycle percentage declined, actually. In 1978, there was a government who tried to reintegrate the bicycle system here, creating bike lanes, and they saw immediately that the bicycle percentage increased at the time.
I find it a bit chaotic.
Yeah.
Cycling here. I think you have your own rules, and it's not always easy to follow. So who has priority on the roads?
As a bike, we are the king of the bicycle lanes.
You're the king of the road.
The king of the road, you know. So you take initiatives to cross the street, to take the right. So you have to little signs to the right, to the left. Yeah, we're accelerating or decelerating the speed, you know. So just, oh, yeah.
Okay, I want to talk about these guys. So they're
These guys,
on
yeah.
scooters or mopeds,
Yeah.
on the bike lane.
They are available to ride on the bike lane.
Okay,
And it's like to decline the number of cars
on the road.
on the road.
Don't you find it dangerous to have scooters on the bike paths?
Yeah,
on the
it's
bike lane?
quite dangerous. Normally they can go till 25 kilometers per hour.
Yes,
But there are some guys who can do it like 50, so they go like crazy.
like they're on, Formula One.
Yeah.
Security doesn't seem to be a big deal here, though.
No.
I mean, you don't wear helmets.
No, yeah, it's
Not
true.
even on the scooters.
No.
You're not afraid for your life here?
No, we're not afraid. You know, because you ride bike every day from your 4th age, the bikes will be integrated in your life, you know, so it's a part of your life.
It's been with you forever.
Yeah.
So you're not fearful at all.
To minimize traffic jams on bike lanes and to keep up with the constant increase in congestion, the city has invested heavily in its road system.
Yeah, there's a 4-year project in 2060. We want to invest like 120 million of euros for our new bicycle communication system. So bike paths will be wider. The 15 kilometers of these bicycle lanes are like overloaded. So like between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock, 1,500 to 3,500 cyclists on this 15 kilometer lanes, you know. So it's like a lot of people. We try to make the paths wider, and also in the city center, a red carpet. We call it the red carpet. And it's like a red bicycle lane, which will communicate better in the city, actually. So you can be like just in time, you can just go off the red carpet, put your bike there and just go to the shops or wherever you want.
Nice.
Just to make it more easy for everyone. So like it's like sort of highways for bikes, yeah.
Do you think one day they will tell people to put a helmet on?
No, never. I don't think so. We don't have the risks of mountains and the fastness of this kind of...
Helmets are not for mountains.
Yeah, I know.
You're a very positive guy. No, I would say you're a very positive...
Of course, yeah, but the cars, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, there are cars. But in our country, the mentality has changed because the people in the car also drive bikes. So they know...
Yeah, they're aware.
Yeah, so
they're very conscious.
Yeah, they're conscious about how does a biker feel on the bike, you know? I can tell you that there are not a lot of accidents here, like 500 a year accidents, 5 or 6 deaths each year. It's always too much, of course, it's too many.
Okay.
But if you compare with other cities, it's very low. You know, the most accidents are like with kids.
Tourists.
Tourists, and of course the older people, yeah.
Tell me about the problems with that many bikes in the city.
Many bikes in the city, yeah. You have a lot of overflowing racks of bikes. People put their bikes in, and sometimes they never take them. So there's like
abandoned bikes everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere.
Is it true that there are hundreds of bikes in the canals?
True, yeah, true. Like every year, we remove 15,000 bikes per year. So it's with a boat and a crane takes the bikes out and put it somewhere and just to recycle the bikes after because we can't use it anymore.
People just throw them out there or it's accidents?
It's accidents. It's also, yeah, you know, I'm sorry to say it, but there are like drunk people who just kick them in, you know. Even we are just, when they do this kind of project, we see it and it's like crazy. We like take all new bikes, old bikes. You know, you have to imagine that we have a level of mud, a level of bikes, and a level of water.
Άμστερνταμ may be known for its bicycle culture, but it does have other distinctive attributes. Once the world's richest city, in the 17th century that is, this former hotspot for commerce shows its character in the old center, home to a remarkable architectural showcase.
What you see here is incredible. First of all, there's this linear space along the canal, which is one of the canals that were created to expand the city. So from the real core of the city, the Damrak, between Central Station and the Dam, there are several parallel canals on both sides that explain the growth of the city, the historic growth of the city. So basically you could say that, in principle, is older than that, because it has been going that way. really old historic soil, and that's basically the reason why I wanted to start here. You have to feel this, the scale, rare space here, which is round, around the church. There are very, very few spaces in Amsterdam like this, and all caused by this very monumental, very old building, which is, of course, a tremendously important monument for the city of Amsterdam. And this is the old church, Oude Kerksplein. If you're looking very well, you will notice that there are signs of, let's say, modern society. So you see all kinds of restaurants. Of course, you see the so-called sex industry. You see a sex shop over there. And while we walk through this area, you will notice that there are all kinds of operations that show a real renewal. Well, for instance, where we're here, you see a brand new facade. This is a brand new daycare. Maybe this is kind of typical for Amsterdam, that within some meters in the middle of this sex industry, you find this daycare center. And it matches very, very good. It fits very well. It's absolutely splendid. Some 50 years ago, there was a tendency of making throughways through the city, demolishing large areas, renew the city in a very brutal way. And afterwards, there was a period in which urban renewal was elaborated in a way that it took responsibility towards the original values of the city and so on and so on. So the scale of the city was taken care of, the parcellation of the structure of the city, the height of the city. Here, you have to be tremendously careful, and you absolutely have to explain what you do, and basically it is practically impossible to build a modern house. It has been done in other parts of the city, but I think especially now it's on this UNESCO list, it's impossible anymore.
The houses look like they're leaning forward.
Yeah, there are a lot of stories about that. I mean, one of the explanations is, of course, nowadays that it's especially for the tourists, that if you're here, you just simply you see them better. But one very, very important reason is, apart from the fact that where construction is concerned, it's very, very, very good because the rain is dripping off.
Right.
But the most important reason is that you see the hook at the gable there. And that the vertical transport, there was, and there is, still is, a lot of vertical transport.
Amsterdam's renewal projects go well beyond its architecture. The creation of the Amsterdam-Rhine Canal and the relocation of the port from one side of the city to the other have altered the cityscape over the course of the last century.
For me, this remains one of the most important buildings of it. It has been built only 30 years after the building of the canal towards the sea, so this still was the harbor environment. And it has been built at a very peculiar place because the form of the plot is completely determined by a very irregular pattern of canals all around. The beautiful thing is that you have to imagine that this Prince Hendrikade used to be the former harbor front. And once again, to the left of us, it was simply the sea. So there were ships coming from sea into this dock. And this building had everything to do with the organization of all those harbor activities.
Amsterdam has changed tremendously over time, but one recurring issue has always made the headlines: the flagrant lack of space. In a city where space is so scarce, affordable housing projects have become creative, to say the least. These student residences, for one, are built in stacks of shipping containers.
Now, I'm taking you to one of those places that have changed radically, let's say, after this switch of the city. Originally, this was the connection to an artificial island. Most soil where we are walking today is artificial. Unless the very beginning of the walk, this is completely artificial. All things that you see here have been built on artificial islands. This used to be a vast area for the post distribution. And because the distribution of letters used to be organized by train. Then one day, the distribution of the post has been changed from railway transport to motor transport. And it could be concentrated in the west of the city. So this became, next to a central station, quite near the center of Amsterdam, you had a free lot. You could do whatever you wanted here. The project that has been chosen is a project which is, again, a mix of all kinds of functions, like a hotel, housing, the public library, etc., etc. This was always the edge of the city. Then you had the water, and then you had nothing.
Yeah.
The center was the old city center. Right now, you could say that a new center has been created. Existing water has been recreated as the city center with very, very important buildings alongside it. Traditionally, the central station, then the new Court of Justice, then the Eye Film Center. The tower is the former Shell Tower. Then you have a housing area here, and then here we have the Muziekgebouw aan het IJ, which is a very important center for contemporary music and jazz. So you could imagine that last 5-7 years, the Amsterdammer has been used to have really having a new city center.
So how do people get on the other side?
Just swimming. The idea of a connection between the two banks is very interesting because it is an incredibly important transport way for ships. So you see that any obstacle could be very annoying and so on. Since the 70s, we have one tunnel here in the center, and we have two tunnels on the edge of both edges of the city, being part of the ring road. And the discussion about building a bridge somewhere near the center is a discussion that I think is going on for at least 150 years. And there still are enormous confrontations between people who say we should do this tomorrow, if not today.
At last.
And other people who say no, let's prefer the ferries, which are free, which go every 5 or 6 minutes, and which are for quite a few people very attractive, let's say, moments in their lives. Right. I mean, if you consider that being a citizen in Amsterdam, you are always a little bit excited, and this is very, very hectic city life and so on. So being forced to use this ferry, there are people looking just forward. Yes, I can go home. I go by ferry. 5 minutes of rest.
It's very poetic.
Yes.
Over time, Amsterdammers have learned to thrive despite the complexities of living on water. 60% of the city's current surface was once underwater, but the construction of dams and canals has made it possible to create new land. The most recent urban feat? Eiberg, a neighborhood built entirely on man-made islands.
Okay, now we're going to Eiberg, which is a new area actually. It didn't exist 10 years ago.
It didn't exist before.
No.
So
it's created in the middle of the lake. It used to be a lake before, and now it's 400. They are making 450 hectares of new land.
So it's artificial.
It's artificial.
It's an artificial island in the middle of the lake.
It is.
Lives there?
It's really mixed. So many families live there because you can build your own house there, which you cannot do here in the center. But also, it's also like social housing as well. They try to make a real area out of it, like in Amsterdam, like a district of Amsterdam.
So your brother lives there. He decided to live there?
Actually, it's quite a funny story because when they started to build this island, there was a referendum. So people from Amsterdam could vote if they wanted this new island or not.
Really?
And he, for example, he voted no. At that time, I think he was like 25. And 10 years after, now he lives on the island.
Why was he against it?
I think many people in Amsterdam were against it. Like 60%.
Really?
Yeah, because it's used to be a lake. People are also like nature. They like maybe taking boats on the lake and everything. So, in general, I think if you ask people with a referendum, mostly people vote no anyway, because it's always against something, against changes.
Yeah. And you want to preserve the environment.
Yes.
But it's the challenge of every big city, you know. preserving the environment and developing new housing projects.
It is, yeah.
You're an architect.
I'm an architect myself, yes, as well. Yeah.
You built your own house and you built your...
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
Actually,
Your own house?
my own house that's the last house you built in your career.
Oh, okay. So
Because your first house you built for your enemy.
Your enemy.
The second house is for your friend, and the third house is only for yourself.
Is that what people say here?
That's what that's
The
what
architects here?
what the architects say.
That's
So,
funny. When did you build your brother's house?
this was like in 2010. It's finished. So it's just 3 years old, 2 years old.
Are you still talking?
yeah. It's true because normally you don't really build for your family.
Right. So we're standing on this artificial island.
It is.
It was man-made.
It is. It's all made with sand. So you can see there's the level of the water, and so it's like we are like 2-3 meters higher. It's all built with sand, which comes from the lake a little bit further. And so this was like created in beginning of 2000. 2001 was the first person who moved to this island.
So, Emil, this is a social housing project.
It is, yes.
It's not your typical housing project.
No, it's not. No, actually, this is really what the city of Amsterdam tries to make. Like, they try to combine social housing together with private family houses over there. So they try to create not just one area with only like poorer people or richer people, but it's really mixed in this area. So what you see here, this is the social housing. And from here on, the private housing starts. Goedemorgen.
Hey, good morning. Nice to meet you. I'm Sophie.
I'm Jasper.
Ah, nice to meet you. Jasper.
Jasper.
Goeiedag.
Hoi. Alles goed?
Ja, hartstikke goed.
Now, your brother told us that you didn't want this island to be built. In the referendum. Oh, now you remember. After the beautiful house.
No, that's terrible.
Okay, and now you're happy, obviously.
Yeah.
What do you like the best about this place?
I like the people, I like the space, I like we're all the same people with the same story. We all build houses together and they're all 40 years old, they've got the same problems, the same boring children, etc.
I could live here. It's like it's a fantasy island. You were telling me about the people you all resemble in some sort of way.
Yeah.
They're social housing projects right there.
Yeah, we were a bit scared.
Yes.
But it's pretty okay, and if you act normal, they are people. They breathe they live, and they're nice people.
But you were afraid at first.
Well, a bit, because there are some problems in Amsterdam with social housing, and it's very good. No problems at all. I love the people.
So this is the island where we are now. Here there are really like very fancy houses, very expensive houses on this island.
A lot of football players.
Yeah, true.
Oh, you know that.
I know.
Yeah, that's true.
This is the one with all the family houses you will see here. And here you can see that actually this island is just a very small part of the whole area.
What happens if you want to get a lot here?
You have to go to the council, and the first one who gets there, he gets a lot. And it was so popular that 30 or 40 people were lying down over there in tents to camp to get the lot they wanted.
How much time before?
2 weeks' time.
2 weeks before the deadline?
Yeah.
How much is this property now worth?
Worth
Yeah.
525,000 euros.
And how much was it to build it?
400,000 euros, 425.
So they're quite expensive.
Yes. I mean, yeah, in Holland, and especially in Amsterdam, it's quite rare to have a garden as well already. And to be able to build your house.
Do you have all the commodities here? You
No.
have schools, but what's missing?
All these sport facilities were planned on the second part of Eiburg, which still has not been realized. So that means there was no football club, there was no hockey club, there was nothing, because it was all on Plan B.
Actually, the thing is that the island, which was called Center Island, still hasn't been realized yet.
Aha.
So on the Center Island, there was supposed to be lots more shops and this kind of functions. But there are like some cafes around as well.
What is quite funny at this island is all the kids are now young. And it's really nice to see young kids, 3, 4, 5 years, oh, cute. That's really funny. But in 10 years' time, this island will be a disaster.
Filled with teenagers.
Yeah, they're all 14, 15, 16 years old. And
Nothing to do.
Nothing
There
to do
should
at this
be-
island. Nothing. This is really terrible to live. I think it will be terrorized by scooters driving around.
Yeah, funny.
If houses built on artificial islands weren't enough, others were actually built to float on the water. Assembled in warehouses, these pre-built homes are towed to their final destination and secured to tailor-made docks. The floating houses are built on a concrete foundation, which remains underwater. Designed to withstand Holland's harsh weather, they're just as sturdy as conventional homes, although they do sway with the tide from time to time.
It's a very good combination to live in Amsterdam with one leg in the canal,
Yes.
one leg at the seaside in the north.
This is all designed by one female architect, Marlies Reumer, and she designed all these houses. In contrast with the houses which you see over there, because they are all designed by different architects. So this is 2 different types of districts, actually.
How many houses in each district?
There are 37 floating homes, and doubles, threes, and singles, and also 4 living houses on poles. So that's
We're standing on now.
yeah,
Under now.
and that's made
The
because
pillars.
otherwise it will be a little bit boring just to have those same
Types,
kinds
yeah.
of houses. You have to live close to each other. You have to open the windows. You have to be bright, and you cannot close yourself and lock yourself up. And maybe in the beginning it's a little bit strange
Yes.
because you don't want to look into the house of your neighbors. But when the neighbors are nice, it's not a problem. This is a living room or a music room. I'm a singer, so I like to perform here and playing
Okay.
piano. Well, now you entering the basement, and that's 1.50 meters under sea level. So you have to take your swimming suit on. It's so quiet here, you can't hear anything. It's totally quiet.
Walk in.
Wow.
It's huge.
It's bigger, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are the windows always frosted?
Yes, when we moved here a few weeks, we didn't know what to expect because we were thinking everyone is swimming here and then looking into the bathroom and blah blah. But it's not really necessary. But
Okay.
it gives you a comfortable feeling that no one is going to. At least one place in the house, no one can look into
actually,
the house.
look at you.
Yeah.
Even though water poses quite a challenge when it comes to urban planning, the city's residents certainly don't see this as a problem.
Yeah, very happy to live here.
Mark Papping has lived on a canal for 20 years. To get around, he uses a small electric boat and hardly ever sets foot on land.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we are a little bit away from the city center at this moment. The city center is here. We're about 1 kilometer west of it. But as you can see, the entire city is like filled with blue lines. So that means we can get anywhere on the water. When I just go into town to go shopping or something, I just use the boat. It's much easier. And of course, there's no parking problem.
You've got full connection.
Right.
all the houseboats have electricity, heating. How does it work?
Usually we have those. There may still be a few parts of town where that's not complete, but certainly in this part of town, like everyone has a sewage connection. Otherwise, I wouldn't be swimming here. I've lived here for 20 years now, but even when I moved in, there were people that had lived there for 20 years before me, and I would guess that it started sort of mid-20th century that the big influx came. At that time, you didn't need a permit to park your boat, so people could just buy an old ship and call it their home. That's no longer the case. It's strictly regulated. We have mooring slips, so the city knows where and under what conditions we can park here.
Did you move around with the...
No, they're all stationary. Even the ones that look like ship, ready to go at any moment, quite often their entire engine is removed out of the engine room, because an engine room is what it says. It's actually a real, like, big room filled with, like, giant chunks of metal. So a lot of people, they remove the engine, get the extra room. It's very, very popular to live on a houseboat. And of course, because it's such a restricted supply, there's always going to be more demand than supply.
Because if we wanted tomorrow morning to live on a houseboat, we couldn't do it.
Actually, you could. There's like a free market for this. So there's real estate agents that specialize in houseboats. At any time, maybe there's about 30 or 40 for sale, ranging between maybe 250,000 euros to double that. Actually, the city has stopped giving out mooring slips about 30 or 35 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. There's about 3,000 houseboats in Amsterdam, and in all of the Netherlands, about 10,000. So about 1% of the people in Amsterdam live on a houseboat. Maybe we can take the boat out and see if we can find some.
Absolutely. A boat ride.
Okay, you step in.
Thank you.
I'll unhook the boat. There are 15,000 registered small ships like these. And because, of course, people look at the canals and they say, hey, I live in Amsterdam. Hey, I want to go out on the water as well. Actually, if you look at in front, you'll see one of the ways that we clean the canal. These guys come, they visit each and every canal. There's about 80 or 90 canals in Amsterdam.
Is it government-owned?
It's city-owned. Yeah.
City-owned.
One that actually does pretty much everything related to waters.
Is there a water police as well?
Oh, definitely. There's about maybe 8 or 10 ships. They enforce speeding violations. In fact, if you enter the city from the port or from the river, then you will see one traffic sign saying 7.5 kilometers per hour for the entire city. You can double park anywhere, but not triple park. So, of course, if you double park, you need to step over someone else's ship. And then always people are okay with that. In fact, they're also okay, and this is really strange, with random strangers sitting on their boat and just having a good time. As long as you clean up after yourself, then the owners are okay with it. So quite often you would see like a bunch of Italian tourists, and they're sitting on a ship that's clearly not theirs. They're just having a lunch or something, or sitting in the sun. That's fine. So when I first moved here, this was actually a city garbage dump. I went to the city council and say, are you going to do anything about this? And now they gave me this present, it's a children's playground, that they actually consulted the neighborhood children to say, okay, what would you like to have in this playground? And then said, oh, why a zip line and like a pirate ship and all that. So that's all here.
Whoa!
It's open day and night. There's no surveillance. So whilst, of course, there's local youths hanging out and drink beer or something, they clean up after themselves, and it's a very respectful city that way also. We're actually spending 1 million euros a day in water level control. People say that actually we should be spending 2 million euros a day, but it's so worth it. If you look around you, this, of course, is worth protecting at all costs. We try our best to keep it in great shape. And of course, in order to keep it authentic, we need to use like original techniques and materials. And that's not cheap. And the city actually is in better shape than it was a few decades ago. People may not realize this, but if you think of Amsterdam as a collection of islands divided by all these canals, then of course the entire infrastructure of the city actually needs to go somewhere. And it actually is inside the bridges. There's like some sections, like over here, that are hollowed out, and that's actually for the infrastructure of the city. So that might be wastewater or gas or electricity or data lines. And then, of course, We need to keep the canal bottom at an even depth, and there's a constant amount of garbage, like leaves and sometimes even bicycles that falls into the water. So that's an ongoing effort. So this is one of the locks, one of the main ones in town. This is where the river waters from the river Amstel enters the city, and then it goes through all the different canals. And so that's actually another way that we clean the water. And then it exits the city near Central Station. We really need the canals to keep the water level stable. It does happen, and you can see that on the one that sometimes there's a little variance, maybe 10 centimeters, if that. But it's really important that we get to just the right level of water, because all of these houses, they have like foundation beams, many of which are wood. So they've been in there for sometimes many centuries, and so we really must preserve that stress level. So if the water would lower or rise, then that would snap.
Hello, Pop.
Ahoy.
There you go.
And you can see that, especially on a summer's day, that everyone wants to be on the canals. And really, it doesn't make much difference whether you're in like a sort of converted bathtub or a luxury yacht or speedboat or if it's small or big. There really is not much of a class difference there. There's no cutting in line or anything like that, because we all realize that we don't need to go anywhere else. We're already exactly where we want to be.
That's funny. How about we dock somewhere and have lunch?
Sure, we'll find a good spot.
No, you're not hard to convince.
Come.
Super. Great spot.
Cool, so we'll recharge both ourselves and the boat.
That's good. I like that.
Amsterdam has always been considered to be one of the most tolerant cities in the world. But French sociologist Laurent Chambon seems to think otherwise.
Laurent, Amsterdam is known to be a very tolerant city. Is it really the case?
Well, I think Amsterdam is more tolerant than most cities in the world. It's one of the most tolerant cities, let's say, but it's not as tolerant as it used to be. And maybe we should not mix up tolerance and indifference. The level of tolerance has gone down a bit lately because it's economical crisis, because the tension between social classes and ethnic groups, like everywhere in the rest of Europe. So the general atmosphere is less friendly and open.
So it's an interested tolerance. If you can get something out of it, then it's good?
If tolerance brings money, why not practice tolerance? So since the 17th century, Amsterdam is a harbor of tolerance and peace because it's a safe way to make money, and it makes sure that everyone maximizes all profits. You have to understand that most Dutch people are Protestant and they're individually responsible for their own soul. So if other people are sinful and going to prostitute or having slavery or using drugs, it's their problem. But in between, if you can make money helping them getting on the path of sin, well, why bother? Because yourself, you're going to go to heaven.
So it's a very individualistic society.
Yes, it's very individualistic to the point some of selfishness. And it means that personal freedom are very large, but it means also that sometimes people are very lonely and a bit depressed because it's difficult to make friends when everyone's busy only with oneself. So it's a place of freedom, but it can be a place of loneliness.
Bij Meer, Amsterdam's most culturally diverse neighborhood, is home to no less than 150 nationalities.
So in Amsterdam Zuidoost, southeast, also called Bijlmer. It's a new city that was made in the 60s and 70s. This city was built to be the new modern Amsterdam. where the middle class would come and enjoy modernity. But since the independence of Suriname in 1975, 250,000 people came here from Suriname and made it the biggest black ghetto of Holland. In theory, people like to think that in Amsterdam we're all equal and we're all the same. In reality, it's the white rich people that are downtown, and the more you go away from the downtown, the poorer and the blacker it gets.
So it's an illusion, the fact that everybody is equal.
Well, everyone's equal, but doesn't mean everyone has the same rights, huh?
Exactly. Now, Amsterdam is known to be a very cosmopolitan city.
Yes.
Do the immigrants or children of immigrants integrate well?
Well, you have to understand that it's seen as an international city, and we do have almost all nationalities that exist on the planet. But in reality, it's not as simple. First, Amsterdam before the war was more a foreign city than it's now. Mm-hmm. More or less, since the war, Amsterdam has been invaded by white Dutch people from the province. Yeah.
Are they considered Dutch?
In theory, yes. In reality, no. There's a term is called allochtoon. That means you're not born in Holland, your parents are not born in Holland, and your grandparents are not born in Holland. So, for example, our queen, ex-queen Beatrix, she had a German father, so she's allochtoon. And our king now has also a German father, so he's also allochtoon.
The fact that you have a name for that?
Yes. It's very scary, isn't it?
In Dutch, is a little scary.
There's also a discussion that was kind of interesting where they say we have to stop calling them allochtoon. For example, we should name them Moroccan Amsterdammers. And I was like, if they're from Amsterdam, who cares where their grandparents come from? But obviously, it's still an issue. It shows that it's a problem here, that obviously you're never Dutch enough.
Although some claim that tolerance here isn't much more than a myth, it does feel very real. Homosexuality, for one, was accepted here long before it was tolerated anywhere else in the world.
It seems that homosexuality is less an issue than racial issues.
Yes, well, what you have to understand is when a family have a gay son, he might be gay, but still their son is still white, he's still Dutch, they grew up together. Whereas when it's about being Muslim or being black, it's people far away we don't know. So, of course, in the beginning, it was a problem for people to have homosexuals around them. Most of the debate about sexuality and identity started after the war, mostly because the Catholics were in charge of psychiatric hospital, and lots of patients were homosexuals who were being actually heavily depressed because society was so homophobic. And then the doctors realized that it was not the problem of homosexuals, but of the society.
And you yourself,
yes,
you got married
yes,
to lovely Louis,
yeah.
And you don't even call it a gay marriage here.
No,
right?
it's just a marriage. Marriage is a union between two people. So it doesn't matter what color, what age, what gender, what sexual orientation, it's just two people getting together. It's what we've been fighting for. We don't want to be special, we just want to be like what we want to be.
Exactly.
And that's why made us stay in Amsterdam. It's not the weather, it's not the food, it's not lots of things. It's the fact that...
You're not special.
Exactly, I could be whoever I wanted, and I was to decide what was important in my identity.
Now, drugs.
Yes.
In Amsterdam. Is it not a big deal still?
Well, what most people have to understand is not that it's legal. It's still illegal, but the use of soft drugs is tolerated if it doesn't bother public order. That said, hard drugs are forbidden, and somehow growing soft drugs is also forbidden. Mm-hmm. So there's some kind of miracle that it appears in coffee shops. The fact is, this policy made that we don't have too much of a drug issue in Holland, and that we hardly have any people addicted to hard drugs, and most of them are not in danger. No overdose, very little HIV, very little other diseases. So in a way it works.
So would you say the coffee shops are mainly for tourists then?
Well, it does bring lots of tourism in Amsterdam, but considering the size of the country, you have to understand that most of the drugs are for local people.
Okay, prostitution then. Prostitution is, again, tolerated.
If people are willing to go to prostitutes, it's their problem. If we can regulate that it's not too messy and that we make money, why not? Lately, there's been a discussion because we discovered that most of the prostitutes are forced away or another, and that is becoming a problem because it's an ethical discussion.
Absolutely.
So it's an issue that hasn't been fixed yet and that still needs to be discussed, and I'm very curious to see what will happen.
Geographically, Amsterdam is very small. But culturally, well, it's simply grand. It offers an amazing quality of life in a breathtaking setting. Its legendary open-mindedness may have faded over time, but younger generations, native or newcomer, are reviving the city's welcoming reputation, hoping to make it once again the most tolerant city in the world.